Hey everyone, it's Jack. I'm on camera for this video. I don't really do camera content too much, but I've wanted to start doing it more as of recent. I want to get my face out there for a little more, do things that are a little more casual when I can, and I thought this would be a great first video to do it. Thank you so much for 100K. It is insane. I want to release like a longer video on it, just with my thoughts and everything, but it's been a really just surreal experience all around. So today I wanted to do a ranking video because it seems like people really like when I do these, and I like doing them too. Something about encapsulating an entire topic into a ranking from the show, it's just a really cool concept to me. I want to do rankings like this with topics that I don't really think can fit into just a voiceover video, so I'd rather just be on camera because it's a little easier to edit. I'm not inventing this concept by any means. I mean, shout out Runner Eye, who is basically taking over the Drag Race sphere, and I love that. He's been doing the dumbest and funniest videos on this, like he just ranked drag queens falling recently. Truly one of the funniest people in the community, and I want to do a video with him really soon. My channel is not nearly as chaotic as his, so I'm just doing things that I can really talk about for a while, but I could maybe get some chaotic stuff in there, maybe do a ranking with him. I think that'd be really cool. I've done full videos on almost every All-Stars twist at this point, and I definitely want to finish that at some point soon. This ranking will be all of my thoughts on the All-Stars twist along with the regular season's twist as well. I'm sticking to mostly US except for one twist from Canada that I just want to talk about because I think everyone knows what it is. I look at twists from Drag Race as a thing that changes the status quo of the show. Something that comes in and prevents an episode from running beginning to end like a standard Drag Race episode should. There's a couple things that I omitted from the list, like double chantés, double sachets. Those could be considered twists, but I think twists are things that are really planned for, and those are more just on a whim. I'm pretty sure I got every single twist. There are 20 on the dot from the looks of it, so I think we should just get into this ranking. I should just stop talking. Just kidding, this is Editing Jack coming in to say that there are a couple more twists that I added to the list later as the video went on. It was things that I realized later could be considered twists, and I think it was better to have them than not have them on the list. You'll see towards the end of the video. And here is the list. Some of these images encapsulate twists that appear on multiple seasons, while others only appear on a single season. Before we get started, I think it's best to just go through each of the images and the tiers to make sure people understand what I'm meaning by this. Miss Vanjie represents queens that are returning from a previous season. Oh my god. Pearl and Trixie is queens returning on the same season. Obviously, this image is from All-Stars 1. It's the All-Stars 1 twists. These four images right here represent the split premiere twists. Katya represents the All-Stars 2 shakeup to the format where the queens are eliminating each other. The mirror image is Revenge of the queens coming back for this specific season. I split up the comeback challenges for All-Stars 2, 3, and 4, especially from the regular seasons, because they're all so specifically their thing. We'll talk about the regular season comebacks in a second and how putting them together just makes more sense to me. But for these All-Stars comeback challenges, I wanted to split them up because it's also just a little more fun to talk about. So we have the Revenge of the Queens comeback, the Handmaid's Kitty Girl comeback, I think that's what it's called, and then the comeback in the Lalaparuza episode as well. Bebe represents obviously Bebe coming back for All-Stars 3. Then we have one of the most infamous ones, the jury twist. Latrila represents queens coming back from an All-Stars season to another All-Stars season, breaking that status quo of what we expected out of All-Stars casting. Evie is the lip sync assassin twist that we saw for All-Stars 5, 6, and 8. Then we hop back to regular seasons with the Porkchop loading dock, the game within a game twist on All-Stars 6, the golden chocolate bar on season 14, the platinum plunger on All-Stars 7, the fame games on All-Stars 8, and then we have the golden beaver from Canada, definitely something that I just want to talk about. And finally, the two most recent twists, Rate a Queen and the potions. I think all of these make sense being here. You can argue that some things from the show could be here too, like giving immunity and also taking it away from the earlier seasons could be technically a twist. It doesn't matter that much. You can do your own ranking if you really want to. As for the tiers, going from the bottom to the top, strike it from the records. I think this one is very obvious. It's a twist that was so bad that people want to forget about it. It made the season worse by having it, and thinking back about the twist kind of makes you angry or upset. There's definitely a couple on here that fit that bill. The next we have Nothing Burger. It's just a twist that really did nothing for the season. It was just kind of there or you forget about it. Thank God that went okay is the type of twist that is either decent or something that could have ended up really bad but ended up going just fine. That was cool. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory and made the season a twist that when you think about it, it is probably one of the defining aspects that made the season so good. Hopefully this is all clear. I tried to put it in chronological order, so let's get started. Also, subscribe. Thank you. Mwah, mwah. Starting off with queens who returned from a previous season onto a new season, I think this is a pretty cool twist. We started off on season 3 with Shangela, who returned, popped out of the box. It was a really big moment for the season and she made it pretty far. And then after Shangela, we jump forward a lot of seasons to Cynthia Lee Fontaine and then Eureka and then Vanjie, who all went back to back to the point where it almost became like a given thing that may happen each season. And honestly, I think it's a pretty cool idea in general. I feel like they originally did it to see how a specific queen has grown from the show, but I feel like each time they brought someone back for the next season, it was for a different reason. Like for Cynthia, they brought her back because she was Miss Congeniality, people really liked her, and she was just a really nice presence. Eureka obviously was the first person to have her run ended short because of medical reasons, so it felt like it was only fair to bring her back. And then Vanjie was one of the biggest memes to ever come out of the show, and having her back was just kind of a no-brainer. So there were good reasons to bring each of these queens back to the next season, and I think in general it's just really good branding because you see the person and you're like, oh, I know them. It's kind of the same emotions that are brought out during like All Stars. But I feel like in more recent years, Drag Race has really drawn the line in the sand of like what they're going to do and how they're going to bring people back. Especially with things like Versus the World popping up, it feels like there's a lot of opportunities for queens to be brought back that don't have to do with the regular seasons. I think they'd rather keep that to just like that cast of that year, which sucks a little bit, especially the queens who get medical evacuated who had a lot of potential. I mean, someone like Cornbread was so ready for the season for the competition, so it sucks that she didn't come back. But at the same time, I feel like bringing her back to a regular season at this point in like the show's run wouldn't be the smartest thing to do because she'd just be such a powerhouse already. I think for the sheer variety that this twist has brought, especially for like the 4 queens who have returned in that way, I think I'm gonna put it in that was cool. I'd like to see them do it again, but I don't think they will. Moving on, we have queens that are returning to the same season on regular US seasons. I think a lot of people share my same opinion. Queens that return to a regular season, it doesn't really ever work out. And it's kind of different for regular seasons and all-star seasons. All-star seasons, it just gives the queens who are in the competition an easier way to eliminate someone because they're like, oh, this person was already eliminated, let me just take like the easy road out. While for regular seasons, it's really clear that they're never really going to crown the person that was eliminated. And sometimes they could come back for storyline and add a decent amount to that, but it feels like they're almost there to meet a quota for episodes. And I feel like we definitely saw that earlier on with people like Carmen or Kenya coming back. Someone like Kenya Michaels returning to the competition and then being eliminated in the exact same episode she came back in, it really makes you wonder what the point was. And I think the reason they stopped doing this in the more recent seasons is because they just rather do double Shantaes instead. It always makes a moment, especially if a performance is really that good. And bringing back an eliminated queen who definitely had experiences struggling in the competition already, the writing is kind of on the wall. The only time that I thought it was relatively successful was with Trixie on season 7, and that's because she was paired with someone who was still in the competition and it was finishing off a storyline. It was a cool makeover. It was done the best there, and that's why I have that specific image up. But people like Carmen and Kenya and Naisha, they came back to the competition just to be eliminated again, and I just don't really see the point in that. So I kind of ping-pong between Nothing Burger, and that went okay, but I think it's a Nothing Burger because most of the time it's just super inconsequential. The All-Stars won teams. I mean, do I need to say it? I strike it from the records. People dog on the season so much because of so many different reasons. They didn't know that they were going to be in teams from the start, so they were caught off guard. It had one of the best All-Stars casts ever, but it was only 6 episodes long, so having 2 of the fan favorites going out each week, it really sucked. A lot of the challenges that were meant for teams still didn't really feel like they were great team challenges. Just all around a really poorly planned season, and honestly, everyone is trying to forget about it, in the sense that they're trying to forget about this specific season, but they still like the idea of a teams concept, and I do too. If the queens knew they were going to be in teams going into the season, I mean, obviously I think there would be a lot more success because they could plan it out together. But just as is on this season, it was terrible, striking from the records. I mean, we even had people like Latrice and Manila saying that that first go around on All Stars 1 didn't really count as their chance. And while I do think it did to some extent, at the same time I get where they're coming from and how they were kind of screwed over by this whole situation. It's something that could work, but I think they have realized just how much of a mistake it was. Up next, we have split premieres, which arguably at this point shouldn't be here because it is almost the status quo. It's tough for me because I think season 6 did a really great job, and then season 12 also did a really great job. And that's that's ultimately because they were refreshing and we hadn't seen it done before. It's always nice to get to know each of the queens a little better because no one is fading into the background. I think that's a great thing. But I think at this point, it's also killing the pacing of the competition. So it comes down to what you're looking for. I think I'm looking for like storylines and getting to know the queens. So to me, it's okay, but I think I could see other people ranking this lower than I do. Overall, I would say it's a decent, like, thank God that went okay. There's nothing inherently bad about it, but it's kind of hard for them to go above and beyond with this style of premiere. Outside of like what they did with the queens on season 12, where they surprised them with it not being an elimination episode, I think that was really cool and a really great way to start off the season. It's definitely a cool idea that I think we've just been exposed to a little too much. Up next, we have the All Stars 2 format where the queens pick lipsticks and eliminate each other. I wasn't really in the fandom at the time that this season aired, but I know the concept in general is a really interesting idea that I think people did enjoy at the time, especially in the earlier episodes where the drama was really getting to people and people were entertained by that. But I think for each season, we started to see where the flaws of this whole format came into play. The Rulaska Talk storyline on All Stars 2, I mean, we saw Roxy be in the bottom for 4 episodes in a row, really struggle in the competition, but with her alliance, she was saved every week. And side note, I know she's going to destroy on All Stars 9. I just have this feeling in my bones that it is her season to win. And then All Stars 3, we had Dela coming back to a format that she didn't really like, and the pressure was kind of getting to her. Granted, she only ended up eliminating 1 queen, but making that choice every week, that just kind of weighed on her. And then obviously Naomi and All Stars 4 dismantled the entire format to where they really wanted to change it up. It's nice that we still get this format on Versus the World, and I think in general, I still do like this format a good amount. I mean, we saw on UK Versus the World season 1 the absolute chaos that could come out of a format like this, and I feel like each go around there has been a different amount of mess that has come out of this format, whether it be a powerhouse alliance saving one of their members each week, a queen that was so over picking someone to eliminate each week that she ends up eliminating herself, a queen eliminating a frontrunner the first chance that she got, and the same thing in UK 1. Canada Versus the World 1 and UK 2 didn't really take advantage of the twist in a crazy way, but I'm still happy that it was there for them. So I'm gonna put it in that was cool. I'm still glad that we get it, and I think that since it left the regular All-Stars, people have started to warm up to it again, and I think that's a good thing. Up next, we have Revenge of the Queens. It is a very obvious made the season. It's one of the highest rated episodes ever, capped off one of the most insane storylines. It has just really cool imagery like the image before you. I made a full video on this one already. I think they really properly built up the hype for this twist, teasing it each episode up until it actually happened and having just every narrative really come together in this episode. It's really hard to talk about All Stars 2 without bringing up Revenge of the Queens, and I think that's a sign of something that really made the season. Up next, we have Bebe returning for All Stars 3. This one is a hard one to rank because I'm happy that she came back, and I think in general it was a really cool idea on paper. Having the first winner of the show come back, introduce herself to a new audience, see if she could still compete with the best, I think it was a really smart thing to do. But with a lot of hindsight, it felt like they were protecting her a little too much on the season. She didn't have a lot of bad performances, like I don't think she should have been in the bottom very much, but I think one of the twists that we'll talk about in a second happened because they wanted to make sure that she still held up as a winner. Bebe's performances on the season in so many ways showed that she still got everything it takes to be a winner, but they were so scared of tarnishing her legacy as the first winner while also bringing her onto the season that they kind of meddled with things, and I just don't know if that was the best idea. I think I'm still gonna put specifically Bebe coming back and thank God that went okay, because I just like seeing Bebe back on the screen, and it kind of opened up a lot of possibilities for a lot of queens to come back. It was the first time where they really broke down the rules of like who can return, you know? So specifically Bebe coming back, that was really cool, but there's another twist that she affected that was not as cool. But before we talk about that one, let's talk about the Handmaid's Tale, the comeback challenge, whatever this was. This is one of the most confused rulings of the show, and I really don't like this episode in a lot of ways. These 3 twists from All Stars 3, again, I already did a video on them already. They are kind of a mess when it comes to twists and choices that production made. And as much as the next twist is really infamous, I think this Handmaid's twist is almost worse, I want to say, solely based off of how they judge the episode and the tops and the bottoms. So for those who don't remember, the 10 queens of the season were split into the 2 groups, the queens who were still in the competition and the queens who were eliminated. They each wrote and recorded verses to a song and then performed it, and how it was going to work is that if the queens who were still in the competition won the challenge, the top 2 queens of that group would lip sync and they would be able to bring one of the queens from the eliminated group back. But where it trips up is that they also had to eliminate one of the queens from the group that they were in, aka the winning group of the week. While if the eliminated queens won, the top 2 of that week book would lip sync, and then they would eliminate someone from the group of queens who are still in the competition. And then I think the person who won the lip sync would be put back into the competition from what I remember. It's hard for me to remember that second part because the queens who were still in the competition won. And there's a lot of implications to that because if they didn't win, what does that say about the queens who are still in the competition? Should they be the 5 that are eliminated? You get what I'm saying? This one's just hard to talk about in general because it's confusing on so many different levels. I think everyone could agree no one should have been eliminated this episode, and that's what caused Dela to eliminate herself. The ruling was just really stupid all around, and it's because they had to meet an episode quota, I get that, but there could have been some better planning done, honestly. So for that reason, I'm inclined to put it and strike it in the records. I don't like this episode. All for the judging, I think the songs and everything and the performances, they were fine, but there were just so many weird choices they made for this episode. And now we get to the jury, which ties into the other two pretty fiercely. First, I think a lot of the reason the jury was put in place was to make sure that Bebe's legacy wasn't tarnished. If she didn't make top 2, it wasn't the choice of Rue, it was the choice of the queens who didn't put her there. It makes a lot of sense, and it's a very subtle way of doing things, and I think that was smart of them to do. But then caught in the crossfire of this decision was the frontrunner of the season, and then someone like Trixie was able to benefit from it. I think it was a relatively smart thing for them to do. In general, I don't know if Bebe really needed that protection because she just did good on the season in general, but I know it was something that they planned from the beginning, and that's the worst part. They planned it from the beginning, but they didn't tell the queens that they were planning this. So that was just an extra wrench in the plans for so many people on the season. Trixie didn't win any lip sync on the season, so she didn't have to eliminate anyone, making her relationship with the people in the jury really good, but there were other queens on the season who did eliminate people, making bitter jurors, and they couldn't really do anything with jury management or pleading a case beyond what they were just given in that room. So it just turned out to be a mess, and people were in the right place or the wrong place at the right or wrong time. It's another strike it from the records one. It really killed the momentum of the season. I don't think we really need to say anything beyond that. Up next, we have Latrice and Manila returning. It's kind of similar to Bebe, but I think it's its own thing because it's coming from All-Stars to All-Stars for the queens returning. And I'll say it right now, I think this is a twist that makes the season. It makes basically every season that it's in, especially for like the earlier All-Stars seasons. If the queens want to come back, let them come back. If you're going to ask them back and they're a guaranteed surefire yes, that's really great. Especially since those earlier seasons did have really heavy hitters. People like Latrice or Manila or Jujubee or Alexis Mateo or Ginger Minj, they've all returned and made really deep runs on the next All-Star season they came on, and I think that's really great. And now Roxy is back for All-Stars 9 and everyone is freaking out, and I think that's for good reason. I remember there were a lot of people who were up in arms about Ginger returning for All-Stars 6 because they had this idea in their head of the rules and the casting and who can and can't return. But now 3 seasons later, someone who had a much deeper run in the same season that Ginger is on is coming back, and people are freaking out and they're so happy. I really have no complaints for this. I think a lot of the time the people that they're asking back for a 3rd season, those are fan favorites, and overall they're going to be good in the competition or make good TV or both, and that's great. Alright, sorry for that cut. This is totally the same day, not multiple days later, and we're moving on. I actually added a couple more entries to the list, both of them being Lalaparuzas. I decided to add them in because this next one that I had was the Lalaparuza one, but it's also the All-Stars 4 one, and I feel like I should have just split them up because it makes it a little easier. So now we have 22 entries. I'm sorry it's not an even 20 now, but I think people would also be commenting if I didn't, and I'm sorry for the continuity of it as well. So next we have the All-Stars 4 Lalaparuza. It is the first one, and it's also the Returning Queens Challenge for All-Stars 4. I still think about the moment where the eliminated queens are standing in the workroom waiting for the queens who are still in the competition to come back. The editing is so dramatic, and it ends on like a perfect cliffhanger for the next episode. And for this first Lalaparuza, it definitely was like the smallest in scale, but not in dramatics, because All-Stars 4 in general is just a really dramatic season. There were only RuPaul songs, but for like a trial run, I think they did an amazing job. I mean, we had lip syncs like Sissy That Walk and Adrenaline come from this episode. And obviously, it's a twist that's worked and now has stuck around. We've had lip sync for the crown before that, which I guess could also be a twist in and of itself. But for halfway through the competition, dropping this on the queens, I think it was just a really cool twist. And honestly, it's one of the most memorable episodes of the season. And yes, maybe it just was a way for them to get Latrice back in the competition, but I really enjoyed this episode a lot. I'm debating whether I want to say it was cool or it made the season. I want to say that it is up and made the season because there were just so many amazing moments that came from this episode, and obviously, again, it is a twist that stuck around afterwards. Up next, we have the twist of the next All-Stars format from All-Stars 5 and 6 and 8. I always forget that it's also an 8 too. That being the lip sync assassin twist, and I think this twist is good. It's hard to say because it goes back and forth between the seasons. On season 5, the lip syncs weren't that great, but I feel like that's what the lip sync assassins were told. Like I've alluded to in the past, and you've probably heard around the block, there have been rumors that sometimes they told the performers to not go as hard in order to fit the narrative. I don't know if that's true, that's all alleged, but if you're bringing in lip sync assassins to be great performers, why are you also then telling them to not perform at their highest level? It doesn't really make sense. But then we got it back for All-Star 6, where it seemed like every single lip syncer was there to really win the lip sync, and I feel like they also really listened to the fans of who were great lip syncers, and they brought back some of the heaviest hitters. Still kind of gave them some weird songs, like Manila got dirty against Kylie, like that doesn't really make sense. I think this twist is such fan fiction, and it works out really well, probably like 70-75% of the time. Sometimes the assassins are just given songs that don't really fit their vibe, but when it fits the vibe of the person at the top, then you can kind of see where they're trying to meddle a little bit. Big examples are like Miss Cracker versus Kennedy, kind of, but then Dirty with Manila and Kylie, and the Freakazoid lip sync from All Stars 8 with Jimbo and Silky. That one was, I mean, come on. I've also gone into great length about how this lip sync assassin twist is a failsafe when they don't want to send a particular queen home. The lip sync assassin has the lipstick of the queens who voted for the majority of the person who was in the bottom. I don't even know if I'm like wording that correctly, but long story short, the person in the top still has their choice of who they want to eliminate from the bottom, but the assassin has the choice of the majority of the group. And in almost every single vote, except for maybe like the James Mansfield vote, the group of queens chose the queen with the worst track record, and I think that's just how it works inherently. So it always gives them the chance to save the queen who has the better track record if the person in the top decides to go rogue and wants to eliminate that queen with the better track record. But it's all done in a really smart and subtle way, and again, you just got to give it to these producers for being so subtle and smart with their decisions. It's really interesting. But for All Stars 5, there were only a couple good lip syncs, like the one with Evie, and then All Stars 8, I don't know if the twist didn't work out because we were tired of it, or it didn't work out because Jimbo was in the top for so many of them, and you know how Jimbo lip syncs. I think I'm gonna put it in that was cool. It has a lot of the issues that the other All Stars formats have, but I think it is cool enough to keep around. I am happy that they're probably gonna switch up the format from here though. And up next, we have arguably the worst twist on this list. It is the season 13 Porkchop loading dock. What a terrible twist. I've done a full video on this a long time ago, but I've still talked about it since. This is one of the most forced twists they've ever done. It really mentally screwed with the queens. The pacing of the episode was bad. I think overall it was a terrible introduction to the queens, and I think they were trying to make it a better introduction, and it kind of backfired. I think they were partially doing this to pad out the runtime of the season because they were asked to do a ton of episodes this season, but it added basically nothing to the season. The winner's circle storyline went nowhere. Queens thought they were eliminated right then and there, and that's just terrible for like their dreams and again their mental, and it made it so we didn't get an elimination until week 4, which is so long. I never want to see this again, but I feel like that's a given. I don't think there's a single person out there that actually likes this episode, so yeah, we're gonna put it and strike it from the records. But going from one of the worst twists to one of the best twists, we have the game within a game on All Stars 6. For a twist that was hyped up for basically the entire season, there's a big chance that it is never gonna meet expectations, but somehow miraculously they did it on All Stars 6, and they did it so well. Again, done a full video on this. I think part of what makes this twist so cool is that it happens throughout the entire season behind the scenes, and it's like the perfect recap right before going into the final 2 episodes of the season, giving everyone a reminder of who was eliminated, giving everyone a little bit of redemption. We kind of saw the same thing on season 16, not to get ahead of myself, but that's a lot of the same themes and redemption we saw there. All Star 6 was all about redemption, and Silky getting the biggest redemption of all I think is so cool, partially because she went out super early and we kind of expected her to stick around for a lot longer, and there were just multiple layers of redemption there. I think she became a fan favorite after this episode. She was able to redeem her lip syncs. I've grown to really love season 11 Silky, and I think All Star 6 Silky helped people like put that into perspective, and yeah, she's become a fan favorite since, and I'm really happy about that. It's pretty ironic that they had back-to-back twists of lip syncs, but where season 13's went wrong by having these queens who we didn't know lip sync against each other, All Star 6 got it right because these queens lip sync against each other at the end of the season, and it was also All Stars, so we already knew them. The stakes were higher, the relationships made a lot more sense. It was just a really great twist, and it really made the season. Up next, we have one of the most infamous twists from the show, that being the golden chocolate bar twist. There is so much that I can say about this twist, but I just don't really care to because I feel like it was so nothing on the show. I hope that doesn't give away the category that it's going to be in. This twist would be fine and so much more memorable if it weren't for the fact that there were so many other non-elimination non-elimination episodes on this season. Episodes 1 and 2 were split premieres and they were non-elimination. The DragCon panel episode had Georges and Jasmine both stay. The Snatch Game, there was no elimination. And then by the Rusical, the Golden Chocolate Bar came out, making 5 non-elimination episodes, which is ridiculous. And then you get a surprise 6th one going into the final episode of the season. They shot themselves in the foot where they didn't need to whatsoever by having this many non-elimination episodes. It just made the Golden Chocolate Bar feel so much less, because what's the point of opening the chocolate bar and getting saved when Rue can just save you because you had a good performance regardless. I love season 14. It holds a very special place in my heart, so I'm kind of biased, but I will say the competition side of season 14 was not there at all. It was barely a competition because the people were just getting saved left and right. That really sucked, but I at least enjoyed the cast, so them sticking around for longer, it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, the Golden Chocolate Bar twist is a nothing burger of golden chocolate bars. I don't know. Another Lalaparuza is up. You can kind of count this as a twist, but then in season 15 it kind of just became another challenge. But Snatch Game was their excuse to use it on this season, and I think that makes it enough of a twist because we hadn't seen it in this form before, like on a regular season. I mean, I think they were still working out a lot of the pacing. It got better in season 15, and by season 16 it got really great again. I love the workroom reactions that the queens do. I'm happy that they actually get to watch the lip syncs live. I think what this season does better than season 15 is there's a lot more suspense here, because again, it was framed like a punishment for how bad Snatch Game was. So you really didn't know how the format was going to work. Are multiple queens going home, yada yada yada. It made for a much more stressful time, a more dramatic time, and a more entertaining time than season 15, while at the same time the pacing wasn't as good as season 15's was. Overall though, I think it's a good episode with some pretty good lip syncs. I don't really have much else to say about it, so I'm gonna put it in thank God that went okay. Up next, we have the All-Star 7 twist. Again, I forgot another one because I tried to strike this from my memory, but we have the 3 stars twist, so I added it right here. This is my first trial, guys. I'm sorry, I'll get better at continuity and everything because I know people can kind of get on people for that. But first, let's talk about the Platinum Plunger. I think this is also coming back for All-Stars 9 as well. I'm not exactly sure the format, but I know there's not any eliminations. There's a cute amount of strategy when it comes to this twist, but I don't think that it was fully tapped into because sometimes they would block someone like Jinx, and then the next week it would be a design challenge and that block just kind of goes to waste. If they were given some sort of hint on like what the next week's challenge would be and then they could kind of block accordingly, that would make more strategy and make it a bigger and better twist. But each queen just ended up being blocked at a different point for kind of no reason. It only really affected the Vivienne. It's a cool idea with a lot of strategy that could go into it, but that was definitely not seen on All-Stars 7, and I'm not sure it'll be seen on All-Stars 9 either. Maybe they'll change it up, but I think this is just like the thing that they wanted to add to make it slightly more interesting for a non-elimination. But for right now, it's kind of giving nothing burger. And one of the reasons that it is giving nothing burger is because of the ending twist for the season, that being the 3 stars twist at the talent show. This completely destroyed the format. Again, made a full video on it. You can go check that out, whatever. But the way they trickled out legendary legend stars and had people be blocked, people only ended up having 2 to 3 stars by the end. So by giving out 3 stars for one challenge, where other queens had to win 3 challenges to get the same amount of stars, I just don't know how this twist got past so many different levels of planning. It destroyed the competition and it really destroyed the entire format of the show, and I feel really bad that Shay won the challenge but got a lot of hate for it. Like, she wasn't the one to make the decision, and I feel like there were just so many ways to solve this. At the very end, we had Monet pick between Trinity and Jada of who should have been in the top, but I think it would have been a lot more interesting to have 2 stars given out, and then the queens with 3 stars had to like lip sync or battle it out in some other way. But as is, I think it's up there with one of the worst twists that they've done. I don't know how I would order the bottom ones. I'll probably do it at the very end, but yeah, let's just strike it from the records. And up next we have Fame Games. I haven't talked about this one as much because it wasn't over by the time I gave my thoughts on All Stars 8, and after that I just kind of didn't care enough to talk about All Stars 8. It's just another one of those twists that on paper it could be really cool. These queens are spending so much money on their runways, and being able to showcase them on TV, I think that's really important. And having the queens be acknowledged for their talents even beyond their eliminations, that is so smart. Where they mess it up is the talent show numbers and having the multipliers be in there, because for most of the season they were advertising the runways in their packages, and that's a lot of what people assumed was going to be like what people were voting on. Then we get to the talent show. Having a talent show for the eliminated queens, I think that is completely fine, because some of the queens don't have the runway power that other queens do. So it was really smart for them to do a talent show because other queens could really advertise themselves for the Fame Games in that way. I think they could have made that a little more clear from the beginning as well. But then we get to the end of the episode where the top 2 are Lala Ree and James Mansfield, who were great in their performances, but then they were given a multiplier at the very end, allowing for a boost in their votes as well, and I think that almost made the entire thing obsolete again, because it turned from a really even voting scale based off of runways and then now a talent show performance to basically who is going to win between James and Lala because they both got a multiplier. Am I happy that Lala Rhea won $50,000? Yeah, I am. I love Lala, but I just don't think it was done in a proper way, and again, it just made the entire twist obsolete. Having the runways air at the end of Untucked as well is an interesting choice. I wish they could air at the end of the regular episodes, but I know like with pacing and timing and everything that probably wouldn't work out, but I feel like even airing them at the beginning of Untucked would have probably been smarter, so I am going to put this in Nothing Burger. Like I said earlier, I just decided to put this next twist in from Canada Season 4 because I think it is a wonderful twist. For those who don't know, the Golden Beaver is given to the winner of each challenge each week, and they are given the power to save one of the bottom 3 queens from elimination. Regardless of their performance or anything, they just have the power to do so. It is such a smart twist and gave us some of the best drama from the season. It leads to a lot of entertaining strategy, like I said, drama as well. I think it's the right amount of power in the queen's hands to make interesting choices without it going too overboard. It is just overall a wonderful, wonderful twist that I really hope we see on maybe like season 17 or All Stars 10, something like that. And I do hope that it makes its return on Canada Season 5 as well. Easily made the season. I think it could be a mainstay on multiple different franchises, and I don't think anyone would complain about that, at least for like present time. And we finally got into the season 16 twists, and I will be honest, 2 out of the 3 I really don't care for. The potion twist could have been really cool, and I do like when the queens have a lot of choice in how they use it, but with that choice can also come some lackluster choice, and I think that's what we got with both uses of the potion. Saphira got in her head and used the potion and then immediately regretted it, and I think the potion was really interesting for that episode and could have been like a pinpoint in her story arc, kind of starting out strong and then getting in her head, but I don't think that storyline ever really blossomed. And it's kind of true for Plane 2, who used her potion on Nymphia, kind of showing how she is turning over a new leaf, being a little nicer, being a sister or whatever. But Plane's was wasted even more because it turned out that it was a top 2 episode. Before Plane used her potion back when I did my season 16 video, I was happy that they gave her a time limit on it, but instead they gave her a time limit with an expiration on the one episode that was non-elimination for the season anyways. It really just made no sense, and I guess it kind of served as a pinpoint in her character arc, but for the actual twist itself, it made it, say it with me, obsolete. So I think it was just kind of a nothing burger twist because I don't think it was used to its fullest potential, partially because the queen's choice was a big wild card in the matter, but also because the storytelling after the queens used their potion just wasn't as strong as it could have been. It definitely wasn't bad, and I would be fine seeing it back, but I just really wasn't impressed. And speaking of not being impressed, we have Rate a Queen. Morphine and Plane for this twist tried to do something interesting by keeping their friends in the top or putting people lower to get themselves in the top respectively. Morphine tried to save Tsunami from the bottom while Plane tried to put Nymphia lower in order to get in the top, and both kind of worked out, and I thought that was really interesting strategy. And then we saw it again for the ball, which I forget about. It was kind of interesting, but once they saw the ratings and it didn't really go anywhere with storylines, it really just didn't add enough as a twist. I've slightly warmed up to the idea of seeing this twist come back just for like one more season because they've seen how the queens used it on season 16, but if it doesn't come back, I don't think anyone's going to be really crushed. I think a lot of people just forgot it even happened because it only happened in the first couple episodes. So I think I'm also going to put it into Nothing Burger. Both of these twists I can see having potential, but for the season they were on, it didn't make the season any better or worse. They were just kind of there. But if we're talking about a twist that made the season 1000% better, one of the best twists they've ever done, let's talk about the season 16 Lalaparuza. It is very, very similar to the All Stars 6 Lalaparuza, checking in with the eliminated queens and giving them the redemption that they deserve. Megami and Mirage got the redemption that they were looking for, Megami especially. The pacing of this Lalaparuza is really great. They were able to use the Drag Race Secret Celebrity stage. It just really felt like a fun celebration, and I'm happy that we got it in this form. It's like a victory lap and redemption for people. A lot of the pressure was off, and someone at the end won $50,000, and I'm really happy that it went to Morphine. I just like when the queens get money, and I think this was a perfect way to do it. So I think it really made the season, and it kind of wrapped everything up, a lot of the storylines, in a really nice bow. So there's a chance I could have forgot something, but this is everything that really came to my head and what I would consider a lot of twists. To me, the worst of the worst twist is still season 13's. All Stars 7 is bad, but not mean-spirited. The All Stars 1 twist I think was just a really bad decision, but they really have learned from it. I think with season 13's, it just highlights a lot of the bad sides of how reality show production can be, and I think the quicker they distance themselves from these types of twists, the better the show will be overall. As for the best twist, I don't know if it's recency bias, but I really did like season 16's. I think I still am gonna go with All-Star 6 for the best twist because there's a lot of similarities with season 16, but I've had a lot more time to sit on it, and I think it was just done so well. This is the current ranking. Obviously, it doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things, but this was just a fun thing to do. I hope you guys like this type of video. It is very casual. It ended up being very long because I like to ramble a lot, as you can tell. But if you like this format, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I definitely want to do another ranking like this very soon. May is going to be a very hectic month for me, but I want to sit down and record some videos. Just keep an eye out for everything. Once again, thank you so much for 100K, and I will see you soon with another video.